Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're going to talk about paintball. And, of course, before we begin, I'm wearing a hoodie. We're just completely undermining everything it means to be personal time with Greg. It was a little cold in the house today, and instead of turning up the heat, which requires me to operate the thermostat, I'm just dressing warmer instead. So, yes, paintballing. I went paintballing this weekend with Claudia and a bunch of her coworkers. One of her coworkers apparently likes to do paintball, and he invited everybody out. And I have never gone before. I'd always heard about it when I was young. I always thought it would be pretty cool, but I never went. I also had friends that did like airsoft, and apparently with airsoft guns you can buy little pellets they're functionally paint pellets, but you load them into your airsoft gun and they fire off. I don't know how good the paint pellets are for airsoft guns. Like, I kind of wonder if jamming isn't a problem. But, yeah, paintball guns. We had an interesting thing where somebody thought that their gun jammed during the match, but it turned out what happened was there was a safety feature on the paintball gun, and it just so happened that his gun was shot in the safety button by someone else's paintball, so it put his gun in safety mode and he couldn't fire it. It took him a while to figure out that's what was wrong with it. He was like, oh, I gotta, take it out and clean the gun or something. I know, got a gun jam. But, yeah, anyway, what we did is there's a couple of different paintball places around the area, but the one that we went to was in, like, a cave, which was kind of cool into itself because as we went down there, it turns out that this entire cave had been turned into, like, a shipping area. So there were all these trucks down there going to pick up supplies out of essentially, like, it's not really a mountainside because I live in, Kansas. And there's no mountains in Kansas, but, it was like a big, like, rocky hillside or whatever. And so it kind of looked like this secret villain lair where they were shipping out a bunch of, I don't know, like, evil villain plutonium bombs or something like that. I don't know. It was cool. Like, I mean, it makes perfect sense that people would really use stuff for that sort of reason, but, you normally only see that in movies as, like, evil villain lair stuff. So for me, it was just kind of neat. For them, it was probably fairly mundane. They probably, I don't know how they feel about caves. My understanding is that they stay a reasonable temperature all year round, so maybe the caves are kind of nice. Maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, though, I was recommended to wear a lot of layers when I went to this paintball thing, and I didn't really, to be honest. I wore, like, just a pair of pants, and Claudia and I, before we set out, we agreed to wear matching sweaters. And that way, and then we'd stay on the same team, and then that way we'd be like matching, at least for the two of us. We wouldn't match everyone else that was there, but we would at least match each other. And then when we got there, they had rental equipment, and so you got like masks, and the masks were all matching by nature, and then you got helmets, and that was how you differentiated your team. They had a yellow team and a blue team. You bought a helmet, and you put that on. You fit it underneath the mask so that you wouldn't get shot in the face as easily with paintballs. And then we got like scarves, and the scarves came in a variety of different colors and patterns and things like that. So what Claudia did is she looked for a green scarf to cover our neck that had Santa printed all over it, and so she found one for me and she found one for her, and so we were like green sweater buddies with green Santa scarves. And yeah, we're one of those kinds of couples that's matching shirts and all that stuff. We both kind of enjoy that. We're both huge nerds. I don't know if this ever comes across that I'm a little nerdy. She's a little nerdy. We're both a little nerdy. She's in denial. But anyway, though, so yes, we ordered these paintballs, and they had a couple of different things. What I suspect it was is there was like the standard paintball, which was like the cheapest, or the standard gun, which was the cheapest, and we ordered like the cheapest gun. And then they had, like, other tiers up, and so one of them was, like, it looked like an AR-15 or something like that. And we actually had a guy come on the field with one of those, and it was a significantly more accurate gun, but it did cost more to rent. And then there was a third one, and I think that what that might have been was, like, a fully automatic paintball gun. And that was the most expensive gun. I looked into this afterward because, again, I have no familiarity with paintball. But at any rate, though, we bought the cheapest guns, and what these guns all were is you had to, you pull the trigger once, you fire one bullet. And, if you're really good with guns, you can fire pretty quickly that way, but you have to know how to do it, and you have to be comfortable with it. And even if you fire a lot, the thing is that those guns are still fairly inaccurate. I mean, like all the rental guns, they probably don't get that great of maintenance and all. So, like, when I was firing down, like, I was using the sights and everything like that. Like, I had the thing up mounted, and I was doing my best to make sure that, I could see what I was doing, But, like, I noticed the paintballs, like, it really didn't matter. They flew downfield, certainly away from me, but the direction that they traveled was completely up to chance. Like, you really did have to fire like a good like 5 paintballs to make sure that at least one of them went straight out from the barrel. Because a lot of them would be like straight up, way up in the air, way down low, here, there, da-da-da. And I suspect that a lot of people, like, we were shooting at each other's chest. I got shot in the legs a lot. So, the guns didn't have, like, fantastic range or anything like that. Like, I've got a bunch of, like, welts. I might still have them, in fact. Yeah, I still got them. Still got, wearing shorts to say it's cold, and then I'm wearing shorts. This is part of why I'm cold. Anyway, so yeah, I still got welts all over my legs, because most of the shots shot me in the legs. People would aim for the chest, and then the paintballs, for whatever reason, didn't have enough, I don't know, like, they would, like, gravity would just take them, and they would go down, and they would still hit hard enough to really sting, but just everything came to the legs instead of the chest. You could never predict where the balls were gonna go. So we were in this cave, and what they'd done is they'd set up a bunch of, like, barrels and, like, broken down cars and things like that back in these caves, and so you could run around and use these things as cover. And, what I discovered pretty quickly was that with the rental guns, the way to actually get ahead at all was to sneak around behind people. But a lot of the game you spent essentially pinned down behind cover. Because, I mean, you could run around with the guns being that inaccurate, and you never knew, like, maybe I'd get hit, maybe not. But you were kind of just relying on random chance. You know. So, the first 2 games, I was the first guy out both times because I was very bold. Like, I was thinking, like, maybe if I get really close, like, I'll surprise someone, like, I'll get up here and cover, and I'll kind of hunker down, and I'll wait for them to move, and I'll shoot them as they run by or whatever. That was my plan. But the trouble with being bold, I guess, in the middle of a crossfire situation, is that you get shot and killed. So, first couple of games, I was kind of, like, way advanced, and just trying to get in a shot up, like, a place where I could surprise people. And then, of course, I just got myself surprised. So, lesson learned, that doesn't pan out. It's much better to play defensively, to hold a good position and then just wait for them to make a mistake, than it is to move forward where they're going to see you. The other thing that worked really well was, like, lots of flanking and sort of pincer maneuvers. Except for that time we had somebody shoot each other. Claudia actually did really well. She got good enough. She was good enough that pretty soon I was jokingly referring to her as Sarge. And I was following her around and being like, all right, what next? Like, what next? What next? And the best games where I had the most survivability was where I stuck to Claudia, and then she and I would provide, like, covering fire for each other. So it'd be like, oh, that guy's over there. And I'd be like, all right, can you pin him down? I'll run up and advance while they're under cover. And so we kind of did that, where, like, she would shoot at somebody, and they would, like, duck below a barrel or whatever, and then I would run up to the next set of barrels and then shoot at them again, so they'd duck back down, and then Claudia would come up beside me, and we would just kind of go back and forth like that till we got around to where we wanted to go. So I had one game. First winning game that I had was with Claudia, in specifically that situation. She wound up pinning some guy. We got down to the last guy, and she kind of just, like, sat down behind her barrel shooting at this guy, pinned him down, and I went around behind him and then shot him in the back. I wasn't up close to him, I just got around, like, I was a ways away. There's a rule in this place where if you get up, like, within 20 feet of someone and you shoot them, they eject you from the arena. Because those paintballs hurt. And if you've got someone, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to run up next to them and then yell, surrender. With the problem being that you have to wear these masks, right? And the masks muffle your voice, so it's really hard to understand us. Like, we actually got yelled at a lot by the refs, because there was only maybe 3 people there who had paintballed before, and, like, I don't know if anyone had paintballed at this particular place before, so we didn't know all their rules and conventions too well. So basically, like, they just got mad. Like, the first time, like, before they said go, everyone had split up and, like, run off to their defensive positions, and so we'd started paintballing before we got the signal. And they were mad about that, and they were yelling at us, but it all came through as being like, hey, these guys over there, and so, like, we were just like, I don't know, what's going on? And then so after that match was done, they called us out, and they were like, all right, you have to wait for the signal. The signal being that we'll count down from 3, and then, like, the other thing too was that, like, one side had a cone that the team was supposed to start next to, and then the other side, what they had was a cluster of barrels that they were supposed to wait behind, but there was, like, clusters of barrels everywhere, so, like, a cluster of barrels was not really a distinguishing feature to go run by. So, like, for, I think, 3 games, the team on the barrel side didn't actually know where they were supposed to meet. And so they'd get yelled at, and then they'd stand around in confusion and not know where they were supposed to be until the ref would just give up and then start the game. So, Anyway, though, so telling people to surrender, I only saw it happen once, and it was me that surrendered because I got surrounded. I was the last man on my team, and there were like three guys around me, and I shot one of them. Like, he came up behind me, and it was actually pretty great. It was a very harrowing situation. He ran up behind me, and in a panic, he just fired at me a whole bunch. And a bunch of paintballs exploded, like, right next to my head, and I was just like, oh, God! And so I turned around and, like, just got up, and, like, I was under fire from the other side, so I was probably gonna, like, be in trouble, but I'd lucked out, because what I had been doing was I'd been kind of in my corner, and there was another guy who was pinned down, and he kept trying to, like, get out, but he was in sort of there was a bit of an open area for him to, like, run to. So what I was doing is I was just kind of, like, shooting at him from time to time, like, you know, bang, 1 second, bang, 1 second, bang, 1 second, just kind of in the general direction that he was at, and it was keeping him stuck. And again, this was a good, like, I didn't know where my team was, like, I had a guy behind me, and so I was just kind of, like, keeping this guy pinned, and I think the guy behind me was trying to move, and then he was gone. And so I was just by myself, so I was just kind of like down there, like keeping the pressure on this other guy, because I didn't know what else to do. Like, I was all by myself, and then that's when the paint started flying, and that's when I realized I was surrounded. So, like, this guy was, like, right there behind me, so I just turned around, I was just like, oh, God! And he was, like, wide out in the open, so I just, like, pulled the trigger on him a couple times, got him out, and then I tried to, like, run out of cover, because I was like, oh, no, I'm gonna be surrounded. And so, sure enough, there was, like, another guy standing right there in front of me. He was within, like, 10 feet of me, and then there was another guy, like, some distance behind him, and I was, like... You're allowed to take that chance. Like, if you want to shoot someone within, you can do it. You're allowed to do it once. Like, you have to shout surrender, and then you shoot them once. And so this guy, like, he didn't even shout surrender. I just looked at that. I'd been shot enough times by this point in the game that I just, like, put up my hands, and I was like, oh, please don't. Please don't shoot me from this distance. You win. You win. Because even if I'd shot this guy, his buddy behind him would have killed me. So it's just kind of like, that's it. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun, a lot more activity than I thought it would have been. Like, man, it kind of gets you breathing, and my legs are still tired because I did a lot of, like, the barrels were at different elevations. Some of them were tipped over on their side, some of them were standing up, and so it was oftentimes a smart idea to crouch down behind the barrels or to get in a position or get down on your knees so that people could fire over you and stuff like that. So I was doing a lot of, like, squats and lunges and these kind of things, and so now my thighs are all tired. But part of the problem, though, is that, like, a lot of guys, like, they were told to wear a lot of layers, and again, we had very little experience. So some people showed up in a lot of layers. Like, one of the girls showed up in, like, a really heavy jacket, and so, like, everyone was, like, fogging up and steaming up, and I showed up fairly lightly dressed, and even I was having trouble where, like, my mask was fogging up from the heat, because you're just, like, running around so much, and yeah, like, you're running around, you're breathing heavily, and so your mask fogs up, and you go blind, and then you're, like, gradually being surrounded, like, you can't see, you know, a guy's over there, and you're just shooting at him. You know, like I say, it's fun, but man, I feel for the people who dressed, like, really warm to stop the paintball bullets, because, I mean, I still have welts from those paintballs, but I think I was better off getting a little bit of pain than at least as far as enjoying the game, than I would have been cooking alive like a freaking sausage in the sun. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, though, it was fun for a good while. We wound up actually doing... We were supposed to have 10 people total, but one of the guys didn't show up, so we wound up doing a lot of 4 versus 5 games. And as you might imagine, the 5-player team won pretty frequently. We had an unfair advantage. I mean, like, being one man down made a big difference because of the way that the guns were so inaccurate. All it really took was, you know, like, if everyone was pinned down and you had one person free, that one free guy was able to run around and back. And in fact, that actually wound up being how we won a lot. Was we had one guy who was pretty sneaky, and so what he would do is he would wait for everyone else to get tied up with each other, like everyone would get stuck in cover and everyone would be firing suppressive fire, and then guy number 5 kept running around, like he would go all the way around and then come up from behind the field and then just kind of advance and sweep everybody on the other team. This was happening a lot. And the problem, though, is that because he was being really sneaky, he was getting really close to people, like within 20 feet of them, and then shooting them in the back. And, you know, that was like, it was just like dead accurate that way. You couldn't miss, but it was also against the rules. You had to ask for a surrender. And the problem with asking for a surrender was that gave away your position, because then you were shouting like surrender, surrender, which would tell the other team that there was somebody there. So it was much better for him to just like shoot people in the back, because there was already so much gunfire going on that like that didn't necessarily indicate that there was someone behind you, just that there was more gunfire coming from over where your friends were, which made sense because they were shooting their guns. So he kept doing that, and finally they ejected him from the game. He had to sit out for one game, and then we started to lose because we were down like our sneaky guy. I mean, like it wasn't a total bloodbath, but the game evened out and got kind of fun when we had a stranger come in, a new guy. He came in and he was apparently a regular. He had his own gun, and he brought like an AR-15 sort of thing. And I thought, like, okay, so this is actually kind of cool. And what this guy wound up doing was he wound up being really valuable for the other guys, because this AR-15 style gun, it was more accurate and had a little bit more firepower, so he would stay back behind, further away, and he would just use that accuracy and range to plink at us all game. So he was dangerous. He was tough, but because there was only one of him, and he was still, like, you know, he had to pull the trigger every time he fired the gun. He had an advantage, but it felt like one of those things like, all right, so this guy spent a little bit extra money, you know, he really loves paintball, you know, this is fair, like, this is okay. None of us were really bothered by him. We were kind of happy to have him. He seemed like a really nice guy, and we were like, yeah, okay. So for a while, so with him in the game, things kind of evened out, and then it was kind of like anyone's game. It got to be less of an unfair advantage. So it was good to have him. And then as the day went on, we had a couple people who had to leave. So one guy left. I believe that he had to get to he had tickets to a football game that was also happening that Friday, and so he had to leave. And so then we were back to nine people. But there was another guy that showed up, and I remember watching this guy, and he had like this whole kit. Like, he showed up and he had like a whole, like, he was obviously this hardcore paintball guy, so he was like putting together his gun and everything like that. And so he goes over on the other side, and I'm looking at his gun, and it doesn't look like this AR-15 kind of thing. And so I'm thinking like, oh, maybe he's got like another one of these like normal rifles. And so as we're going to our positions, we just hear pow, like from one of the guns, and we're like, oh no, that guy's got a fully automatic gun. Like, everyone just like, we all just kind of exchanged glances at each other. Like, this was our final game of the day, and we all just kind of exchanged glances, and we were like, do you want to just surrender now? Like, that sounds like it's gonna be awful. And sure enough, this one guy with his super automatic paint gun just annihilated us. Total bloodbath. We didn't take out a single member of the other team. Anytime somebody tried to move or get up from where they were pinned down, they would just be annihilated. Like, he would just turn the gun on them, spray them down. Like, it was fairly accurate. Like, I tried to move from a barrel and got shot like 3 times, like once in the neck, once in the chest, once in the arm. Like, he just, just splattered paint across me. And it wasn't even like a thing, like he just glanced over at me, and then like went right back to shooting at my teammates from behind their barrels. Like, zero effort on his part. It was awful. And it got me to wondering, like, why, man, like, I kind of looked up, like I said, I'd never done paintball before, but after that, like, we were all just like, I went back out there and I'd seen my other teammates who'd been taken out before me. And I just shrugged, and I was like, man, like, that guy with the AR-15 paintball gun, like, that was tough, but this is just ridiculous. Like, I'm glad this is our last game. I wouldn't want to play with that twice. 'Cause, I mean, man, like, not only is it bad because you're, like, you can't move, you're just pinned down by the sheer rate of fire, but, I mean, like, also you're being shot way more frequently. Like, man, like, I got little welts on my legs, but at least I was only being shot maybe like once or twice, by those rental paintball guns. Like, you got 1 or 2 stings. Like, if I had spent the entire day being pelted by like a torrential hailstorm of paintballs by this guy, I would have been ready to go home way sooner. Like, I would have been covered in like welts. I would have been like, oh, another 5 paintballs. Not in the legs either. Like, it was all like where the guy was pointing. So it was like center of mass. He just got me all across the center of mass. Like, man, like, I would just be covered in like red marks. I would look like I'd broken out in giant chicken pox or something like that. I don't know. So I did look it up, and I looked at people's opinions on this kind of thing. And apparently there are games where people actually, the standard thing now, I guess, is to have those fully automatic guns, because I was looking at it and people consider it such a massive advantage that if you bring one of those fully automatic guns to a rental game, basically you're just going to dominate like this guy did. And like a lot of people online who are talking about paintballing, they were like, oh yeah, those guys are awful. Like if you ever see a rental group come in, like those guys will ruin the fun. Like absolutely terrible. But they were talking about how like apparently the paintball companies, they don't generally do anything about it because those automatic machine gun guys, as you might imagine, go through paintballs like nobody's business. So although they may be able to take down like 5 people, like 1 to 5, and you know, they make the game completely unplayable for everybody else, they also go through like 5 times as many paintballs. So it doesn't matter if they drive off 5 other players and get them to quit playing, because these guys will buy enough paintballs to just completely make up for it on their own. So apparently, if you're really into paintball and you really like paintball, you have no other choice but to either join a league that forbids these fully automatic guns, or you just have to get one and then get used to the tactics involved with these like highly accurate fully automatic paintball guns. I was looking into them though, like real paintball guns are apparently like $1,000 or something really big. So yeah, there's kind of a high price tag on it, but it was fun. We did decide that it would be neat to kind of do it again. I don't know when we'll do it again. Claudia was saying like I don't know, in a couple of months she wants to go out and do paintball again, and it would be kind of neat, would be kind of fun, fun sport. I'm fearful that we'll run into another automatic paintball gun guy, but hopefully not. Maybe if we go on a day when the regulars don't show up as often, we might be cool. I think there are also ranges you can do where everyone is forced to use only a rental paintball gun. Also, part of our group, apparently, he'd been paintballing enough that he did have one of those fully automatic guns, but he didn't bring it because he knew that it would spoil everything for everybody. So I appreciate him doing that. It's really good. He really liked paintball, and I think he wanted more paintball buddies, so he tried to keep things fair so that we'd all have a good time and want to do it again, as opposed to just being like, oh, I slaughtered you people. So yeah, fun time. If you haven't gone paintballing and you think you could gather up enough people, I recommend it, if only once. The paintballs do really sting, so if you have a low pain tolerance, I don't know what to tell you. It's gonna hurt, for sure. Also, too, I don't know, your teammates might kill you. I think with the highly automatic guns, you don't get around that so much. Like, you probably don't do so much sneaking as you do, like, suppressing fire and then, like, moving around people. Like think like rifle versus machine. Like, I don't know, you just can't, you're just not going to be moving out of cover very often if all it takes is a quick point and spray. But yeah, but if you get the basic rifles, the basic rental thing, it's pretty fun. It's not too expensive either, because you're not firing that many paintballs. Like, we bought, I think, a couple hundred paintballs and then got a good, like, 6 or 7 games out of it. You know, I mean, like, you only have to fire a few times. You see somebody, you fire, pow, 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 just once or twice. You just keep their heads down. That's all you're trying to do until they flank around you and then they shoot you in the back where you surrender because you don't want to be shot. So, yes, those are my thoughts on paintball. I had a good time. I suppose that'll be it for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.